have to look at yourself as a CEO of you. You are a product and service on the web, whether you like it or not, right? So if we think about LinkedIn, that's one big Amazon, honestly, for individuals. People are going there, they're looking at your profile, and they're determining whether or not they want to engage with you. And so you have to craft your story and your value and understand what you're all about.
This show is all about helping you up-level your life, including your well-being, your relationships, your mental health, your wealth, your confidence, and your joy. I challenge you to keep an open mind as together we discover tips, tools, and advice from the experts to help you live life to your fullest potential. Welcome to the Jenna Banks Show. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today. I have a very special show for you today. Now, as you know, I am all about helping you live life to your fullest potential. And one of the ways that we really need some help sometimes is in our careers. Now, think about it. We spend so much of our lives at our careers, right? But if we're not truly happy and fulfilled and feeling passionate at work, well, this is a huge chunk of our lives. And are we really living our lives to our full potential if we're not doing that also at work? So my guest today is the amazing, wonderful, talented, vivacious Connie Steele. Now, Connie is a future of work and life expert, executive consultant, brand and career strategist, and she helps professionals find their own career life fit and supports organizations in navigating the new world of work. Connie is also the author of Building the Business of You, the first book to help professionals and entrepreneurs navigate the new world of work while aligning personal purpose and professional advancement. Now, her goal is to help people understand their skills, talents, and interests, and provide a long-term strategic approach for them to plan and implement their own career mashup, the career of the future. Her career mashup advice has appeared on Forbes, Authority Magazine, Shondaland, and Thrive Global. Connie, so nice to have you here today. Thank you for joining me to have this conversation.
I am so excited to be here, Jenna. So thanks so much for having me on this amazing show.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I am a former marketing and strategy executive, but right now I've transitioned like so many women have transitioned over time to find their fit. I'm a future of work and life expert, executive consultant, and brand and career strategist who helps professionals really find that fit because we've all been in these transitions, right? And we are looking to align who we are, our talents, our passions into something that enables us to reach our full potential. And so I'm quite passionate about helping people, helping women navigate this new world of work.
That is exactly what this show is all about, helping women in particular live life to our full potential. And that's all encompassing, right?
Yes.
We are not one-dimensional beings. We are spiritual. We're career-oriented. We're family-oriented. We like to have fun. We're so many things. And so that's why I like to keep this show well-rounded. And so today I am really excited to have you on the show because you wrote this amazing book called Building the Business of You. And I was actually introduced to your book by my publisher, who you're not even with. That's how well they loved it. And in fact, I think your book is in the same store as mine in the Fifth Avenue Barnes & Noble, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Among many other places, I'm sure. So basically this book, y'all, is a system to align passion and growth potential through your own career mashup. So good, so unique, so interesting, so needed right now. So Connie, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, when I was interviewing people on my own podcast starting 6 years ago, I noticed an interesting trend of how people were redefining success for themselves, how they were taking different paths that were nonlinear in nature and combining it in a way where they were trying to reflect all of who they are. I also noticed that there were several people who were feeling stuck in their career and trying to figure out how to move forward. So I really became obsessed with trying to understand the why behind this reason for people feeling stuck, but also bridging the gap in terms of how those people were able to achieve that fit ultimately. So I just know that for so many of us, and me going through it myself, and I know you've had a very interesting career journey, right? Through these twists and turns, and you realize, wait, where I'm at, is it where I want to be? But what do I do next? So it was this desire to create clarity for people to say, you know what, you're not crazy. You're actually wanting something bigger. But what is the roadmap to get there? So that was really where it came from, is this the desire to help people clarify and create that pathway to achieve what they want to achieve.
Makes total sense. And I would say it is a great roadmap indeed. I've personally read through most of it. I do a lot of reading these days. So I will say I didn't read it front to back, but I did get through most of it. And I was just highlighting all over the freaking place. It was so good. I definitely really, as you mentioned, I've created my own career mashup for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even what I'm doing right here with you right now is something I could have never anticipated doing 5 years ago, 4 years ago, even 3 years ago. But, I did that hard look at my career myself and said, what do I want to be doing now going forward? What's going to work for me to help me feel like I'm living in my purpose and into my full potential and bringing my best skills forward, the things I love to do, the things I'm skilled at, but also I like stretching myself in new areas. What's going to provide me that challenge, right? And so I feel like I've also been on that path of creating my own career mashup as well. But can you give us an example of what a career mashup looks like from your perspective?
Sure. Well, you know what? You are an example of a career mashupper. I think the best example, candidly, is you and probably some of the
Okay.
guests you've had on your show, because it isn't one thing necessarily. So I think what people need to realize is that it is grounded, obviously, in this deep analysis of you, your strengths, your interests, your talents, and your background. But what you've done is you've talent stacked your way to reflect these different facets of you, because you are a TV show host, but where did that come from? You had this
Mhm.
amazing skill before where you were an executive leader, right? You ran your own agency. That is still part of you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're also an author as well. And even, I'm sure, in your early career journey, you've taken all these skills that you've built,
Mhm.
probably the contacts that you've had, and that has been a core element to be able to transfer that into what you are about now. So when somebody creates this career mashup, and there's two kinds of career mashup. So let me clarify that for people, right? Again, combination of skills, interests, hobbies, passions, education, but it's all built into something that reflects all of you. There's one that's a portfolio career. So for those people who may be pursuing, maybe it's a one major job they have, primary job, but they have all these little side hustles, because it could be, maybe you work in an organization and you are maybe a finance person, but maybe on the side you love baking and you have a little baking business on the side, or maybe you even do writing as well. All of those things are part of your career mashup, or maybe even run a nonprofit. But another example is a super job. So you have been that person who likes to sample in a lot of different places. You want breadth, which is very much the case for a lot of us, right? We don't want to do just one thing. Once we master it, and we want to master it to a certain level, right? So you learn, you're like, yeah, you know what? I like that. That's enough. What's the next thing? So you've done this breath, but you want to bring that all together because you can see the interesting combination and value it brings.
Mhm.
So for those of you who work in a company, have you noticed those people that you value, or even the jobs that you've had, is where you start off with one particular responsibility. Then all of a sudden there's an opportunity to do more, and your manager or even your peers say, you know what, you'd be really great at this. And that gets added onto, and you could see the connective tissue on how it lets you grow and expand your network and contribute. So that is another example where you could bring together design, content, maybe even development, for example, and marketing all in one thing, because you can then connect the dots all around. And I will say that some examples in the book that we have, another career mashupper, this person, Yao Huang, she is an investor, but she's also a community builder. She also has been a TEDx speaker. She has been, she also runs her own, really VC. So, I mean, there's just not one aspect, but they're all interconnected. And I want people to recognize that there is a unique thread to you that can bring it all together. But having a plan is really important because doing all of them at once can be challenging, right?
Yeah. And that it can be overwhelming, but I think it's an iteration, right? Like
Yes,
yeah.
100%. I mean, again, let's use you as an example. Where you started, where you were 5 years ago, and how you've constantly iterated and evolved to where you are now. And I'm sure that you have done your own road mapping. So, you know what? This is what I want to create right now. And this is the goal that I have. But the goal that I have isn't just the professional piece. The goal that I have has to tie to something bigger, my life goal, my aspiration. How do I integrate those two so I can deliver the type of impact to women that I want in the world? So again, I go back to these amazing people like you where I could showcase that. That's why it just makes me so excited that this really connected with you, because I just knew that, you know, you've lived that path. You are that
Yeah,
person shipper.
I am that person. That is true. Well, actually, using myself then as an example, I've been an entrepreneur, a bit of a serial entrepreneur, but I've also run departments for other companies. I had my own side hustle while I was working in one business. It was a jewelry retail business, and ran it for like maybe a year and a half or so. I'm so glad I did it because it taught me what it takes to sell online. And I had to do all that research, which brought into all the other stuff I did with my next business that I sold in 2019. I would never have been able to do that had I not had that side hustle and learned what I learned at my full-time job at the same time to bring into the next business, which then moved forward into what I'm doing now, which is also being an entrepreneur, but at a different level. And I'm stretching my skill set, which is something important for me. And I love that in the book, you have us map out, you ask a lot of questions, ask us to ask ourselves a lot of questions and find out, what's important to us. What are our skills? Maybe even ask other people, what do you think are my skills and attributes? And it really helps to have that holistic perspective. So you just know it, that you're aware of it. So when you do dive into something new, you can ask yourself, does this answer some of these things that are part of who I am? Or is it way off base? Why am I even going down that path?
Absolutely. You know, so many of us don't do that deep analysis on ourselves. And the reason why, defining this roadmap is so important, because now you have to look at yourself as a CEO of you. You are a product and service on the web, whether you like it or not, right? So if we think about LinkedIn, that's one big Amazon, honestly, for individuals. People are going there, they're looking at your profile, and they're determining whether or not they want to engage with you. And so you have to craft your story and your value and understand what you're all about, which can be incredibly intimidating. But if you think about it, for those of you who have done planning for other people or the organization they've been in, you just now have to flip that and do it for yourself and define what it is that you really want. And it's not easy because it's you. There's a lot of emotion
So
that's
hard.
involved, right? But it is so valuable and critical for you to do that deep analysis, planning, and then implementation. But it is iterative. So you look at those macro trends of where it is that you might want to be, those industries, right? Or those roles. But when you start to do that, you see that there's various opportunities there. But look at your competition also, who you think your competition is, and then understand you. Where do you perform best? Where are those environments? Who are those people? What are those skills that you love to do? How have there been tangible outcomes? And also, how does it make you feel? Let's not ignore those feelings. I think in so many instances in society, we're looking at those hard and fast metrics that define success. But we all know it takes time to get there, right? We are moving forward a little bit every day. And if it feels good, right? We use that, right? We're like, you know
You're
what?
speaking my language when you say feels good. I'm all about that.
Because there are so many ups and downs. It is a journey. It is
Yeah.
not an immediate thing. So if you can understand that success in moving forward and creating progress is also a feeling, not just a metric. And
Mhm.
each of those movements forward ladder up into that bigger goal, and appreciate that it takes several steps to get you to where you are, then it will help you manage through those ups and downs. As we all know, we have that, right? That's the fear of change, the fear of failure, which is also something I talk about too.
Yes, you mentioned that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I wanted to bring that up. So you say you fear failure or failing is good. And that really hit home for me. I when I embraced that, I was no longer scared of failure. The more I heard that failure is good in life, the more I was like, oh, good, because it's okay that I keep failing. I never saw it as failing. I always saw it as a pivot to where I need to be. It's like, okay, that didn't work. I tried that. At least I tried. That is pushing me in a different direction now. How do you think failure is good?
Well, failure is good because of everything you said. You have now gotten information on what works and what doesn't. I think that's how we have to look at it, is that it is an information gathering exercise to identify, does it fit or not? If we don't ever try, we're never going to know if it is something that we could pursue. And isn't our goal to also have optionality
Yes.
in life? So if we don't put ourselves out there and try, and believe me, it is an ongoing process, because I still deal with fear. I think we all deal with fear and imposter syndrome and so forth, where
Mm.
nobody wants to feel like you didn't do well. But
Yeah.
the reality is that if you don't even open yourself up to the possibilities of new relationships, for example, which could lead to new opportunities, or
Yeah.
open yourself up to really this knowledge that, wow, you have a hidden talent that you didn't even know existed. And how could you take that talent and apply it to what you do now to even elevate you to a different level? So if you look at it as, this is just me gathering more information about what I can do and what I like, versus I have to do it great from the beginning.
Yeah.
Nobody ever becomes a master at anything from the beginning, but I think so many of us feel like we should.
Such a good point. I love that you mentioned that. I have an example I'd like to share. So back in the day, when I had first moved to LA, I thought, oh, I'd love to try my hand at acting. I think every single person who moves to LA thinks that. And so I did. I enrolled in acting classes. I started going in on auditions. Now at the time I was working for myself, so I had the freedom to go on those auditions. So I was very thankful for that. I had the time and the resources. I was young and I wanted to try it. And while I realized this is not my strong suit, I was so happy that at least I gave it a go. I could check that off the box. That was no longer a lingering question mark. And I was able to carry that forward because I still took acting classes again, even a handful of years ago. So not that long ago, because I loved it, just what I learned and the feeling of trying something new. And I wanted to get back into it again because also it helped me deal with being on stage. And that was something I knew I wanted to work toward. And I'm so glad I had that experience because it has helped me actually in what we're doing here today.
I was going to
Understanding.
say that. I can completely see the thread of, one,
Mhm.
it was an interest of yours. So, first of all, if it's an interest, you are going to put in the time and effort and work to learn to master it a bit more, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like work. It actually
Mhm.
is fun. But then you understood the skills that you were able to gain from that. And you're able to apply that in everything that you do, because you're a speaker as well, right? So how do you take that knowledge to
Yeah.
make you even better in other complementary areas that help you excel? Because you now can actually see, again, that interconnectedness and that thread that said, oh, wait, when I'm on stage doing a talk, this leverages a skill from everything that I've learned in acting and helps me be a better speaker. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you're also able to apply that to what you're doing today. And I'm sure this also has helped you when you're talking to clients or other people as well, that being able to present and have a certain level of confidence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that comes into play. And I think we unfortunately have spent too much time siloing it and
Mm.
compartmentalizing and saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, acting is for this certain circumstance or situation." That's not
Mm.
true. Not in
Mhm.
today's digital world. So when we sort of break those walls
Yeah.
and really see that, wow, what I've done in one area can absolutely be applied, and a lot of people may not recognize it. That's a strength.
Yeah. And I love how you leverage that in the book. You tell a story or an example of someone doing YouTube videos on the side, playing around with that. But then they're a graphic designer or a designer of some kind, and then mashing up those skills and actually leveraging that to create your own unique business matchup and make a new position for yourself or something like that. Am I messing that up?
No, you're right. I mean, think about this now. Some of the things that people do who are creators, those
Yeah.
were as and you may know this too, but there's a growth in the creator economy. And when
Hmm.
you are creating video, you have to have some design, but you have to learn editing, or you could obviously hire somebody, but editing is a part of that too. That's a whole different skill. But I think many people may think video editing is just, oh, well, that's only for a certain circumstance. Not necessarily. If it's you, you're editing, but you're also designing. You're thinking of the lighting. Maybe you're thinking of the script, so you become a writer as
Mm.
well. But you're also then thinking, well, who do I want to interview? Or how do I want to interview?
Mm.
Or how do I want to present myself? Right. So you become a speaker. You're technically a speaker too if you're
True.
recording yourself.
True.
So if you look at this in a much more expansive way, you realize you have a lot more talents that you're not giving yourself credit for. And so what I want to encourage women is to realize that there is so much more to you and what it is you do today in your current job, or even in the things that you do outside of work, and start to learn how they can all come together to give you some new possibilities of looking at what you do right now, or how it gives you possibilities of where you could go in the future. But it does require, again, that strategic plan of, and that's what's hard, right? It's seeing inside yourself. It's that analysis, which people don't like doing that necessarily.
It's
But then,
hard. It's hard to do that.
yeah, and put a plan, right? We all get
Mhm.
scared to put it down on paper. But once you put it down on paper, you start to commit more, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can't forget it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And now it sticks with you. So don't you have a new analysis tool or something that you built?
Yes, well, we have a work and career success assessment that
Oh.
we have launched. And this is all about helping people understand where they are, because we all know when we can feel successful in our work and career, it impacts our life. So it's an intent to get people to understand, what is that baseline? How are you feeling? Why? But then understand, all right, this is where I'm performing well. This is where I can do better, so that it can help you start to move forward. Because many times we're just in our head. We're not sure how we feel. So I just want to provide a way where you can get some measure of that to help you move
Yeah,
forward.
that's awesome. So how do we access that? And is it free? Is there a cost to it?
It is free. It's 20 questions. It's less than 5 minutes. You can go
Oh,
to conniewsteele.com/assessment and take it.
oh, Connie W. Steele, STEELE.com. And what was the rest of it?
/assessment.
Assessment. Oh my gosh, that's so easy. Okay. So 5 minutes, absolutely. All right. So I love that. Now I do want to get back to the book real quick because you mentioned something about fluidity and I wanted to touch on that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is, like this fluidity idea? Because I love it. I think that today, as you mentioned in the book, we've got to kind of rethink how our careers are going to look going forward because there's so much change going on. And you definitely are a futurist thinker. It's apparent. And every time I talk to you in your book, I love the way you think about what's happening now, you analyze, and then you move that forward to the future. And I think it's really important because we all know our jobs are being impacted by technology, advances in technology, new tools start to take away what was once, 4 hours of our work a day. Now all of a sudden is, zero point 0.1 hours because all we have to do is hit a couple buttons and boom, it's done, right? All this art marketing automation. And now we've got Chat GPT for writing. I mean, AI and technology is definitely taking away some of our tasks, which isn't a bad thing. And I love how you preface it like or frame it like that in the book. It's not a bad thing. You mentioned that it's actually it's a good thing because it'll help us stretch ourselves to our fullest potential, and we get to grow in new ways. And I love that perspective. So how does fluidity, how do you define it, and how does that fit into that?
Well, if we think of fluidity, it's about now going with the flow. And that can get translated into just you test and you learn and iterate in small bites. So here's the important context. When I think about the future of work, it's really about the future of work from a human-centered perspective. It's us as people. It's not about the technology. We have all fundamentally changed in terms of what we want, right? What we need, how we define again, that success. And so it isn't this traditional measure of that linear, siloed, sequential, rigid, conformist approach to moving up the career ladder. And even I'd say in life too, there's certain things that I think, believe that were important to achieve that would make us happy. So whether it was money, title, power, we now know that's not fulfilling. That doesn't help us reach our own personal potential. So now it's really about being more fluid, collaborative, multimodal, multidimensional. It's about individual agency. So we can be our whole selves. And so in order to do that, if we think about, again, this new world is fluid, it's fluid in the way that what we want out of work, when we work, how we work, who we work with, where we work, the tools that we use. But it's even the same case in our life, right? Nothing is really fixed anymore. And if you look at on a very macro level, think of what's going on in the world. When say 10, 15 years ago, the world wasn't as chaotic. It wasn't as constant in terms of the different dynamics that were going on, or at least maybe we weren't as aware. But there seems to be obviously some bigger changes that seem to be always happening. But then that also gets translated into how it's impacting us at work, right? Work is always changing. But I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm always hit and blindsided by something new that happens every week, if not multiple times a week. That you're like, really?
Yeah.
Wait, this can't be happening again, or I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Okay, this seems crazy, but okay, I guess that's sort of the new world we're in. Some stuff coming out from left field and then right field, and it's constant, right? So the way to deal with this constant change and uncertainty being the new certainty is to now it's to go with the flow. It's to be fluid. Now, the way to get grounded though, because it can be so unnerving, right? A lot of us don't like change. We want to have stability. We want to have some sustainability. So how do you balance fluidity and sustainability at the same time? Well, it gets back to what are you striving for? What do you want? What is that goal? And then what is that plan to help you achieve it? Because when you've got clarity on what you're striving for, not just, I'm in this job right now and it's okay. It doesn't feel fulfilling, right? But when you say, no, well, I'm maybe in this job for now, but what I'm striving for is X. And I'm working towards that a little bit every day, every week. It helps shift your mindset. I know you talk so much about mindset on your show. I 100% believe in that. It's hard, right? Because shifting your mindset isn't an overnight thing, but if you build that muscle to help you realize, all right, things are changing. Let's go with the flow.
It's okay.
Yes, I'm learning when I'm going with the flow and I'm going to take these different dynamics to gather information. It happens, but that information I gather in this moment, it can help me define that path of possibilities.
So good. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Connie. So I want to touch on another area. I mean, there's so many areas in the book, and we're not going to be able to get to them all today, but I'm trying to hit on some of the ones that really stood out to me the most. Um, Soft skills. You talk about soft skills and the difference between the hard and the soft. How important are soft skills, and can you define those for us?
Soft skills are incredibly important. I'd say they're more important now than hard skills, because hard skills you can go learn. You don't always have to have a formal education. You can go online, right, and take a course and so forth. But soft skills, that ability to lead, to communicate, to influence, to connect, particularly in a world where we're not always in person. How do you build that relationship with someone virtually, like you and I are now?
Yeah.
That is how you're going to be able to move whatever initiative you have, whatever passion or something that you want to champion forward. So that is all about, again, this level of persuasion, communication, leadership. Those are the type of soft skills there. And I'd say one that I hone in on in particular is emotional intelligence, the EQ piece. Because to build that level of connection and also to lead, you have to learn how to read the other person or understand how they are thinking and feeling. So there's that social competence, like what's going on in a dynamic, right? How many of us have been on Zoom calls and you see all these faces, and some faces are happy, some faces aren't happy, and you're wondering, well, what's going on, right? But also the personal competence, meaning how are you behaving? And there's also the social intelligence, right? And also the personal sort of intelligence, that evaluation. So you're reading the room, understanding how people are, how are they reacting, why are they reacting, but you're also understanding yourself.
Yeah.
How are you presenting yourself?
Yeah.
And when
That's
you put those
important.
together, right? And for so many of us, when we're out there and you're in a product and service on the web now, how you put yourself out there matters, and it can be super scary. But when you better understand how you show up, and you understand how people may react to you showing up, but also understand them and how you connect with them, that is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, you mentioned some pretty eye-opening stats in the book. You mentioned 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates during the hiring process, while 43% use it to monitor current employee behavior. You also mentioned that soon freelance and contract workers will soon make up half of the entire US workforce. That's just mind-blowing. Yeah. So, how you present yourself online, in Zoom calls, etc., absolutely makes a difference. And then you also talked about some other soft skills that I found interesting, like negotiation. I want to do a whole show on negotiation, because I think that a lot of us, especially women, and not everyone will relate. I'm sure some women I know are very great negotiators, but I had to learn negotiation. Like
that's not my strength too. So yes, it's hard. It's definitely hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So even just one area like negotiation, it's like, man, you've got to undo a lot of old programming and beliefs around it. Like,
100%.
like, oh, I don't like to argue or confront, so I just let them win if it's not, that big of a deal. But I think it's super important that you have a point of view, you have an opinion, and that you aren't going to be just a doormat. I mean, because that does also affect your, your job, right? Like, how are you going to then move into areas, vendor management and sales and management in general, if you can't negotiate and have that as a skill set, a soft skill? So they may seem small, like problem solving, but they actually, each of them take a lot of time and focus, right?
Absolutely. And one thing that's important, you do have to negotiate for yourself. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not about just negotiating a deal for an organization, but
Right.
you have to think about, what do I want?
Yes.
How do I advocate
For
for
myself.
myself?
That is so
Exactly.
good, Connie. That is so good. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And
If
networking too, right? So the negotiation and then the networking piece too, connecting with the right people who
Yes.
can advocate for you, which
Yeah.
is also a part of, one of the components of the planning system, which I think all of us know that, but networking can be really uncomfortable as well. But
Mm,
you know that you need people. People are so important to helping you get to where you want to go. So
absolutely.
if you haven't been clear first on what are you striving towards, it becomes hard to then identify the village of people that you can enroll in your path to get there.
Mm,
But even, whether it's your existing network or new people you want to reach out to, it's hard to then say, what is this all for? If you can say,
mm.
this is what I'm working towards. Do you feel there's an alignment on that mission? And if there is, it becomes easier, right? For you to connect with them, and then you mutually help each other and you eventually become great friends and you become part of the village. But if there isn't that clarity, it's a little more challenging, right?
So I'm glad you brought this up because networking you definitely focus on in the book, and you recently introduced me to Yao Huang, who you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, which is amazing. You connected us, and then I went to one of her Wonder Women dinners, networked with 19 other local women who are doing some amazing things, and made some powerful connections. And we will absolutely be helping each other out. In fact, I just had a meeting, a follow-up Zoom virtual coffee, if you will, with somebody I met there yesterday.
Wonderful.
And of course, then it's up to you to carry it forward and keep the connection going and have a lunch and build that friendship. And that is important. So it's not just enough to kind of put yourself in a networking event. You've got to also do the work to create those connections and get to know each other. So you know what each other brings to the table. So you can say, oh, so-and-so does this. Let me connect you with so-and-so. And I do that all the time now. And let me tell you, that was something I had to consciously work on. I was not a networker up until 2020.
I would agree with you. I don't think it's a natural thing that we think of, because networking has, sort of this negative connotation to it. For
Hmm.
some reason, if we were to look at it as, how can we build additional friendships? I love
Yeah.
helping other people and connecting other people. But when you do it for yourself, there's some sort of blocker for some
Hmm.
reason, right? Because I think we as women love to give, but for some reason, when we ask,
Yes.
it feels like we're being selfish.
Yeah.
So it's different in that when you understand what it is you're trying to strive for, then it may not feel as heavy of an ask, because you've identified that you're working towards something bigger. And so if they believe in what it is you're looking to do, it's about partnering with somebody and building a relationship around that. And so I completely understand. I wouldn't say, when I started to network, I'm like, what does that mean? And usually you just network when you need a new job, but even you don't even like doing that kind of networking, going to these events. Networking at events are never very fun, right? Because you just feel you're going to be judged.
Hmm.
Do you have the title or the
Hmm.
company or the pedigree or whatever it is
Yeah. Yeah.
that is worth talking to,
Sure.
versus, well, you know what, here's an opportunity to meet interesting people, and how can you deliver value and get to know them, right?
That's
Just like
it.
you and I were like, wow, we think, what each other's doing is great. I love
Yeah,
how you're supporting people. We share similar missions,
we
and
do.
it's about cultivating a friendship.
It's networking has become such a valuable part of my life. I'm so glad I got over that mental hump and figure, because again, it comes down to our programming and our belief system, right? If we
Yes.
believe that networking sucks and then we're not going to like it and that it's a task, it's going to be that for you. But if you switch your mindset and say, I'm going to get to meet some new friends, maybe I can provide value to them, that alone breaks down those mental barriers. And I have been able to provide a lot of value for a lot of people that I've networked with. And guess what? It's helped me understand that it's okay to ask. It's okay to
Yes.
say, hey, can I pick your brain about something? Hey, you're an expert in this area. I'm doing X, Y, Z. I'd love to get a few minutes of your time. And people are so happy to help. And so I just did a post on this recently about how it's really important that we receive as well as give, because if we're so used to giving, there might be a mental block to receiving. And that was certainly me as well. I didn't know how to receive, but I've come to learn that receiving is just as important as giving. It really is that fluidity that you talk about, that to and fro. It's the flow, and you need to be in the flow. And there is really no difference between giving and receiving. So if you can't allow yourself to receive, i.e., asking somebody you met for help with something, then that's something that needs to be worked on. Another of these soft skills, right?
I so agree with you. And I'm really glad you brought that up because it does feel uncomfortable asking. We do have to get over that. And I know it's a work in progress. I think it's a work in progress for all of us, particularly when we're doing something new. So we may not have a level of discomfort if it's something that we just know and we've mastered. But when it's new, it feels a bit awkward and you don't want to sound selfish.
Yeah.
So how do you ask? And I think that's so much of the challenge that we run into. It's not that we may not want to, we don't know always how to ask in a way that doesn't sound that's all about us.
Yeah.
And so if there's a way, again, this gets back to having clarity on what is this higher order goal that you have, then how does it help people? Or how can it help something on a broader sort of mission? Then it's different because what you are likely doing is supporting a broader group of women or individuals for that matter. It isn't just you solely, but there is something that is laddering up to something that's much more impactful. And so when you can articulate that, it doesn't feel like, oh, well, it's this very narrow ask for X. Like, oh, wow, this person is really passionate about this area. I believe in it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And people get to help you.
Yeah.
They get to help you. And there's a wonderful phrase, and I need to ask somebody about this again or look it up because it's something to do with when you ask for help, you actually are giving them a little of your power. Basically, now people feel like, oh my gosh, I need to.
Great point. Love that.
Yeah. Like, so now they feel like, oh no, she needs me, which is a good thing. So it is a little vulnerable. Maybe that's why we don't like to do it at first. And it's uncomfortable, right? Because it's scary to give a little of your power to somebody. But you'd be surprised at how often people feel thankful that they get the opportunity to help you and step up to the plate for you.
Well, and I think, another thing that also prevents us from doing it is because it gets back to that fear of failure. So when we talk about one area in the book is called Preparing for Change, that even if you've mapped out everything, you've understood yourself, you put together a plan, the thing is, then you stop because you start to psych yourself out and overanalyze like, wait, what if I start doing this and I can't or I won't hit these milestones that I've set for myself? Well, maybe I shouldn't do it anyway. And so you don't move forward because you are putting those blockers and subsequently you're catastrophizing the situation. And I think if you'd like, we could always do a little exercise on that too, as an example.
Okay. Yeah. You want to do it right now?
Sure. Well,
okay.
Let's bring something up. So I'm going to do this exercise with you. I'd love to hear, what has been, pick something that's your greatest fear when it comes to doing something that you want, but you're just having difficulty going through it.
Me, you're asking me.
I'm asking you.
Okay. Are you asking me and the audience at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, y'all. Let's do this together. All right. So think of something. Wait, say it one more time.
So identify what your greatest fear is when it comes to doing something that you really want to do, but you're just having difficulty going through with it.
Okay. So for me, I am investing heavily into a new business that I'm working on. And the fear is I've already put so much time and energy and money and resources into this. To go to the next step is going to require another big leap. And while it's like I'm already in the game, I haven't gone over the edge as far as money goes. And so it's like, ooh, that's scary. That next part is like, it's almost like that fear of success, right? Because you go, because it's that final hump and it's going to require, it's like, okay, now it's that commitment financially. That's the scary part right now for
Financial
me.
commitment.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But is that fear of that financial commitment, is it something in which it is, oh no, it's going to make me broke, for example? Because sometimes we go immediately to that fear of,
The
oh my
fear.
goodness, I am not going to be able to support myself, or I won't be able to retire.
Yeah.
I'm going to put myself in a situation that I'm no longer able to lead a certain lifestyle, a level of
Right.
comfort that has been important to me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. And it's interesting, and I will stop and say somebody told me this yesterday, actually. Really cool to bring up right now, which is that feeling, is your goal, your inspiration, this thing you're going for based out of inspiration, or is it desperation or fear?
great point.
Because if it's inspiration, you don't think about those things. You're just inspired, right? You're thinking creatively. You're thinking, sky's the limit. Yeah, I want to do this. I want to do that. And then if it's out of fear, what feelings come with that? And it's, I'm not going to have enough. I'm not going to be able to do this. Da, 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 all the negative things. So like it's a good that you're bringing that up, because I have to go, well, is this a fear-based way of looking at what I'm doing or an inspired way?
Absolutely. And so if we probe into that further, right, I guess this fear of just impacting where you are financially to the point where we tend to catastrophize, right? We tend to think, oh my
Yes.
goodness, this is the worst
Mm,
possible situation.
mhm,
What's the actual likelihood? The next piece is, what's the actual likelihood of this coming to life? And if so, identify if it's high or low, but it's based on determining tangible evidence of where this outcome could even happen, because you have a history, right, of doing very entrepreneurial, successful
yes.
things. So let's go back and look at the data. Let's be objective about it, right? So it's a emotional fear that you have, that all of us have when we pursue something like this that hasn't been done.
Mm.
And that the concern is when you are investing this time and money, right? You're like, wait, will this pay off, for example?
Mhm,
But
exactly.
hold on. You've been there time and time and time again.
Mhm,
So is that highly likely? You've pivoted, you've learned, you've adjusted to achieve the outcomes that you've wanted. And so once you start to identify, okay, is it high likelihood or is it low likelihood based on all the evidence in the past,
mm,
right?
mm,
And so
mm,
list out the potential outcomes that could happen. Let's be very objective about it. It's like, okay, if this, then that, right? Because, okay, I have this particular fear of that outcome, this particular fear, list them all out. And then, okay, here are the positives, but here are the negatives. But wait, if the positives outweigh the negatives, and you realize it's emotional.
mm. That's good. Yes. It's not based on fact, it's based on emotion.
Right. Your fear is always based on emotion. So the whole
Mm,
intent is, you've identified that fear. Is it high or is it low? Do you
mm,
think it's high or low? But then start to play out all those scenarios. So what I'd want people to do is identify all the positive outcomes, all the scenarios of the positive outcomes, put the why behind those outcomes, and also do the negative. List them all out. So you
okay.
can actually objectively evaluate it. Because what happens,
Mm,
we're in our head, right? This all goes back to mindset, everything that you've talked about.
mhm,
Play all these different scenarios that are in our head, and whichever one feels like it's going to dominate, which if you tend to be more of a pessimist, right? And I know I can be that way at times, like they take over. And
Yeah.
so these negative feelings create a list that seems longer than it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes we get addicted to those stressful negative feelings. They run a pattern in our brain. And then that's the loop that runs instead of the positive. Yeah.
Yes. So it is, think of again. I always like to go back to a very data driven exercise because it's grounded in truth, in
Yeah.
what you have done. It takes time, but it helps strip away a lot of the emotion that could prevent you from moving forward. And make sure too, there's probably so many different wins that have been
Mhm.
happening in you creating what you've been creating.
Mhm.
Should add them to the list too.
Mhm. I'm going to add one more thing before we wrap up, and that is test assumptions. I just learned this one
Yes.
as well, right? I'm sure you
Love
would.
it.
So if there are some assumptions, what are some quick, easy ways for you to test them? So identify all your assumptions. Like, well, the market's going to need this, and people want that. You got to test it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And one thing that's so important, we tend to think testing something has to be this big bang
that's right.
because we want it to be perfect.
Hmm.
I have definitely succumbed to that, even though I tell people, you know what, start small. It's so much easier to tell someone else, oh, well, can't you just try a little thing, see if it works? But when we turn on ourselves, it can be challenging. But what you do there is if there's this big initiative that you have, right? And it seems to some degree insurmountable, but break it up into all of its smaller parts. It takes a lot of different steps to actually execute it, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
also can help you test assumptions if it feels right, if it brings you that inspiration and joy. So again, if you, oh, here's my assumption, I think this opportunity would be great. All
Mm-hmm.
right. How do I break it out into all those smaller tasks to help me get there? So that helps from that standpoint. And then start to execute on the one where maybe it gives you the least amount of fear. But once you do it, it's like a checklist. Oh, wait, that didn't feel so bad. Okay,
Right.
that's good. I did this. Now I'm going to do the next piece. And then it starts to build towards you evaluating, does this fit
Mm-hmm.
or not? And then you
Mm-hmm.
can learn to adapt and adjust and be more fluid, right? Because you're not biting off just sort of this huge thing. It's something that's such much more tangible, feasible. It helps you psychologically.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Connie, what a great exercise. I'm actually going to, after we get off today, I'm going to go ahead and list out all the positive and negative outcomes. I think that's going to be really helpful for me to see. So thank you for that. Connie, thank you for coming on today. And, I just want to encourage everyone. This book, Building the Business of You, is so good. She goes into so much more detail into stuff that we've already covered today. So much more that we haven't covered. So definitely check it out. You can get it on Amazon, definitely Barnes and Noble, and all of that. And I'm sure on your website, they can get links as well, right, Connie?
Absolutely. You can go to conniewsteele.com to learn more about me and learn more about the work and ways that, it's so much about helping people reach their full potential like you.
Definitely check out Connie's website. Connie, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate having you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You are such an inspiration to me and to so many people.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Hey, if we haven't connected on social media, I would love to connect with you there. You will find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at my handle at Jenna Banks point oh. On LinkedIn, I'm also super active there. You'll find me, just type in my name, Jenna Banks. And definitely check out my website if you're interested in learning more about my book. If you want to sign up for my free love notes to myself, which are these free daily love notes, which you'll find out more on my website about those. And I have a whole bunch more information about my speaking and also this show as well. So you can find that all on jenna-banks.com. Again, jenna-banks.com. Thank you so much for tuning into the show today. I really hope to see you again next time. And remember, your love is your power. Until next time.